there. And yes, this is my face. Now, the 3 people who've watched this channel before will hopefully be familiar with this. The Roland R8. And of the 2 drum machines I own, this is definitely one of my favourites. So, first released in 1989, it's one of the few classic pieces of Roland gear that Behringer have yet to clone. So for that fact alone, I think it's worth exploring. By default, the factory samples contain more 80s rock cliches than a Rick Beato video, so it'll do the hair metal drums thing. You can use it to sequence other things over MIDI. You can do some pretty extreme pitch shifting if you want that early Warp Records thing. And if you get hold of the 808 card, well, however, one thing you haven't been able to do is load your own samples onto it. So in an attempt to break my own record for niche content creation and find that slim intersection between people who own the R8 and wish they had an SP1200, this video is all about this. Well, it's gone. So this is the WaveRex card for the Roland R8, and it's a programmable ROM card. There's a USB socket on top which allows you to plug it into a computer, and it comes with software to allow you to move samples onto it in a similar way to electron transfer. The card itself is really solid. I don't feel like it'd snap at any point. My guess is there's an Arduino or something similar inside that emulates one thing when you plug it into USB, and another thing when you plug it into the R8, a bit like how the Zulu SCSI works with the Akai sampler. So I've started to see these pop up online and eventually reached out to Marco, who makes these cards, to see if I could demo it for him. And so Marco sent me this on proviso that I'd make a video about it, and here it is. But first, a bit of history. Programmable ROMs for drum machines are nothing new. Indeed, in 1984, Oberheim manufactured the Prommer, which burned samples onto the physical EPROM chips used by the likes of Linn, the sequential drum tracks, and of course Oberheim's own DMX. Around the same time as the launch of the Prommer, drum machines started incorporating their own samplers, starting off with a fight between the EMU Drumulator and the optional sampling add-on of the Linn 9000, also in 1984. And as technology progressed, we had devices like 1985's EMU SP12 and the legendary follow-up, the SP1200. Later, thanks in no small part to Roger Linn, 1988 saw the release of Akai's equally legendary MPC-60. All of which puts the idea of a purely ROM-based drum machine being released in 1989 in a bit of a weird place. You'd have thought that Roland would have wanted to embrace the idea of allowing users to sample their own drum sounds, but instead they wanted to sell these expansion cards, which somewhat foreshadowed the SR line of expansion cards you used to get for the JV series of synths, and even to a certain extent the current Roland Cloud lineup. All of which makes the WaveRex quite a unique thing. Roland obviously didn't like the idea of users doing their own thing with their own sounds, but with some clever coding and ingenuity, here we are, a programmable ROM card for the otherwise locked down Roland R8. Now, the way you get your samples onto the WaveRex card is by using the software you can download from the WaveRex website. You start by making a virtual ROM card, creating instruments, adding samples to those instruments, set up a few parameters like filter and sample rate, and then send it to the card. Once you're done with that, you plug the card into the R8, load the sounds and hope it works. Loading the samples back onto the R8 is much the same as any other expansion card. Put it into the machine, turn it on, load the sounds from the ROM, and fingers crossed you get something like. As you might have spotted, this isn't going to turn the R8 into an octatrack. There's no real-time sampling, so you can rule out yeah. The software itself is detailed, but not flawless. Loading samples is easy, but it's worth pointing out that it isn't a sample editor. There's no start point or end point editing. It's not a recycle style beat chopper, there's no normalization, and unfortunately there's no way to speed up samples prior to loading them onto the card in order to save space. I've also found that longer samples don't load over particularly well, and if you're working with very low bitrate samples, then you can get some weird glitches. There are also some workflow choices that take a bit of getting used to, I found. So like you can't change an instrument without deleting it, and there's a few other things. I've had it crash on me a few times, but all in all, I think because it's a fairly new product still, there will be some updates on the way. A few things to bear in mind: the R8 can only accommodate 26 samples on a card and has a limited voice count. Each R8 instrument can consist of 2 samples, so there's a low frequency main sound and a high frequency sound, the idea being that the decay of each allows you to build up some realistic or unrealistic drum sounds as you choose. The other big thing is the sample space, so you get 512K of sample storage, which, whilst being double that of the SP1200, is a quarter of the size of the thumbnail of this video, so that's kind of saying something. The WaveRex software does offer downsampling, and there's a size counter that you have to keep an eye on. Because of the way the R8 is designed, you can't hot swap things. So every time you want to add or change samples, you have to turn the R8 off, unplug the WaveRex, plug it back into the computer, then go through the whole process again. This also explains why the WaveRex only stores 1 card at a time, so whilst the software allows you to create and save multiple cards, there's no ability to preload the WaveRex with more than 1. Now 512K of sample space is pretty small, so expect lots of gritty artifacts. And indeed one of the reasons I wanted to try this card out was I'd only ever seen it being used with single drum hits, and I wanted to do the whole SP1200 thing of speeding up a sample, putting it on and then slowing it back down on the drum machine, just to try and get the most out of the memory allowed. So, there we have it, the WaveRex card for the Roland R8. In summary, I think it's a really good idea. It's not without its flaws, but I kind of feel like a lot of that is more to do with Roland's design philosophy for the R8 than it is to do with the WaveRex card itself. Hopefully there'll be further updates with the software, and of course vielen Dank, Marco, für das card. That's map, isn't it? Anyway, yeah, thank you very much for watching this. If it's the sort of thing that's piqued your interest, I'll put a link in the description below. And yeah, usual blurb of thanks for watching, and do please comment, like, subscribe, blah blah blah, because we all have to say it, don't we? And hopefully I'll be back with more fun and games soon. Thank you again for watching. Bye.